Hi, everyone. Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio, and I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. I'm really glad you could join me today. And if you're listening to this show on Podomatic, you can also go to iTunes. Just look for Women Entrepreneurs Radio, and you can find the show and subscribe and download and share the shows on social media. But also it's on dbcoach.podomatic.com. It's another place where you can find the show and listen online. Also, the blog, womenentrepreneursecrets.com, is a place where you can come and you can find links for the show and bios for the guests and lots of articles of interest to women entrepreneurs. So make sure you stop by there as well. And facebook.com/womenentrepreneurs is a fan page. And please stop by, and you can ask questions or share info if you have a business that you'd like to talk about or questions about, or if you want to reach out to any of the show guests. That's a good place to stop by, and you can make sure that you are connected up with them. And my site, DeborahABailey.com, so you can stop by there and learn more about me and more about my books. And has links also to other sites and blogs of mine. So I hope you will check out all those different ways to find out more about the show and more about me. So we're going to have a returning guest to Women Entrepreneurs Radio today, and it's JoAnneh Nagler, and she's the author of How to Be an Artist Without Losing Your Mind, Your Shirt, or Your Creative Compass. And in this groundbreaking book, she provides step-by-step strategies to teach writers, painters, musicians, sculptors, designers, and other artists how to have a well-supported, well-lived life and make art at the same time. So welcome, JoAnneh. I'm really glad to have you back.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I really appreciate being with you.
So, if you could just take a moment before we talk more about your book and just share with the listeners, what has your journey been like as an artist?
Well, and I always like to say, Deborah, that I'm defining artists both when I'm talking about it and in the book in the broadest sense of the word. I mean, you might be, a new age blogger. I mean, you might be any kind of creative entrepreneur. And this system that I'm talking about works. So to answer your question about my history, I just had a terrible time in the world trying to figure out my direction. So I knew I had these artistic gifts. I knew I could sing. I knew I could write. I knew I could act. I had all these gifts, but I had no way to learn how to support myself. And I thought that creative people who were successful either had parents who were already artists who showed them how to do it and paved a path for them, or they had a grandmother's trust fund to live off of and they didn't have to have a day job, right?
Yeah.
So I had these really awful experiences in the day job world. I would work for, what I used to say is I could sell myself as a worker, but I had no long-term commitment to the work. The closest I got to anything that was meaningful to me was working in nonprofits, and for lots of years I was a grant writer. And the reason I became a grant writer was because it got me out of offices. I couldn't stand offices. I just had a terrible time there. Mm-hmm. But I spent a lot of my time in offices, so I couldn't make peace with it. It wasn't that the people were always horrible or the situation was horrible. I couldn't make peace with it. And the reason I couldn't make peace with it is because I didn't have a way to give up that sense of either if I'm a real artist, I'm going to starve and struggle until I make it, or I'm going to be discovered at the drugstore counter and instantly be wealthy and not have to need to support myself, right?
Yes.
And so, but what I realized as I was walking this journey and going through these pendulum swings is that I wasn't the only one affected by these thought processes, that this is our cultural milieu for making art. Starve and struggle and live the iconic tortured artist life, or mega multimillionaire, less than 1% category success, and there's nothing in between. Mm-hmm. And so what we do to ourselves in our little monkey minds, right, is we say to ourselves, oh, I'm not a real artist if I have to support myself and have a job. Or I'm not a real artist if I'm raising a family and, I'm not willing to give it all over for my art. And that's just craziness because, take a look at Pinterest, take a look at, at Etsy, take a look at any of the sites where there are millions of us creating with ambition, right? And that's the distinction I'm also making in the book is I'm not talking about hobbies. Hobbies are nice and they're great. If you want to engage in them, that's great. I'm talking about people who are creating with ambition. We have something to say. There's an entrepreneurial spirit behind what we're doing. We're trying to bring something out into the world. And I love the Dostoevsky quote that, beauty will save the world. So many of us are engaged in that quest, whether it's writing a novel or a memoir or painting something or being in sewing amazing quilts or making jewelry or whatever it is, we've got some ambition behind it. So then the question, that cultural milieu of the two extremes begs the question, okay, well, if there are millions of us and we don't really fit into either one of those categories, then we need a new model for how to be a creative person in the world. Because if you look around, creative people have all kinds of issues with relationships, with money, with their job life, and if we want to go to the extreme, with addictions and debt, right? And that's not by accident. It's because we don't teach people in our culture how to live well with creative gifts. We don't do it. We have these extremes, and that's it. And so what I'm saying is we have to give that up. We have to throw that right out the door, and we have to learn to hold more than one thing at once, right? We have to learn to hold our day job life, our family life, our relationships, the crazy crap we have to do in a month, right? Answering our emails, all of that. We have to hold that and create art. So how in the world do we do that? And this is where my personal experience came into play. I had this crazy therapist, and he was very intense, and he used to get in my face, but he was really smart. And I said, listen, I don't want to when I wrote my first book, I said, I don't really want to do this. I don't know if anybody's going to publish it. I don't want to go through this angst again. I've been through this numerous rounds in my art life where I tried really hard and things didn't work out. I don't know if I have the juice for it. And, people were asking me, well, build a platform on social media. And I was like, forget that. I don't want anything to do with that. And he said, why forget that? Why screw that? Really, I said, screw that, right? And he said, this is the game, play it. And what I realized in that conversation was I was looking for instant results. I needed instant results to validate my artistry, right? And I wanted it to save me from having a job. And so I had to unwind that whole conversation and say, okay, wait a minute. What if I define myself first as an artist? What if my identity is my artist self? So as a friend of mine likes to say, I'm a potter and I fix cars to support myself. That's a much different definition than I'm a mechanic and I dabble in clay.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to own the fact that we're artists and we're doing what we need to do in the world to support that. Now that serves us when we go out into the world because we don't want to have a crappy work ethic. We want to show up and be of service. So, as one of my friend's ministers said to her, wouldn't you love it for someone to come along and pay your bills and buy your food and pay your rent while you're making art? And she said, yeah. And he said, great, that person is your boss. Right? So we got to flip the definition. And even the way I learned to do this, Deb, is I would go to work and I would look myself in the bathroom mirror in the women's room and I would say, just make me of service today. Even if this job is only using 10% of my gifts, let me be of service. Because if I do that, I will then be able to apply that ethic in my art life. So then we get to the question of time, and this is the part that always bowled me over. I didn't want to have to spend 40 hours a week at a job, right? I didn't want that. I wanted to spend that on my art. So when I was first here in Northern California, I was in Southern California for more than a decade, and from Northern California, then I came back, and all my friends in LA were like me. We all had jobs, and we were inching towards some sort of artistic goal. And when I came here, I was in this artist group, And 4 out of the 5 of the women in the group didn't need jobs. And what I saw in that group was that group of women, those 4 women, had a really difficult time motivating themselves to do their art. So this thought that if we have open-ended time, we'll automatically get to our art, not necessarily.
Right.
So our job and our family responsibilities actually are our gift, not our burden. They hold our feet to the fire with a schedule until we can learn to put in the kind of regular hours that will serve our artistic character development, so that when we go out into the world and don't need a job or have a part-time job, or, we're retired or whatever it is where we've got a little more flexibility in our life, we've got some rock-solid work ethics. And that's really what I'm talking about in my own life and in the book. So let's put that in a practical framework. So when I wrote my first book, The Debt-Free Spending Plan, I had no history of writing about debt or finance or anything. The whole debt-free idea in my life was a way to get more clarity so I could buy myself more art time, right? So I sit down to write this book. I don't know if I have anything to say at all. And so I decided to write 1 hour a day, 4 days a week, by the timer. Set the timer for an hour, 1 hour a day, 4 days a week. Now, all the crazy things that were going through my head were, it's not real, you're not a real writer, it's not enough, you're not giving it full time, you should be up at 4 in the morning, blah, 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 right? But what I came to see was that if I put in 4 hours a week over the course of 6 months, I'd get some real traction. I'd get some real work done. I'd get my hands in my art on a regular basis, which was the point, right? So it took me a little over 1.5 years to write my book that way. And I like to say, what was I doing that was so all important that I couldn't put aside 4 hours a week to do my art? Nothing, right?
Right.
Nothing. I just had to learn to hold this other life in conjunction, right, at the same time. I had to identify myself as an artist. And by the way, that's really hard for a lot of us. Like we think, okay, well, I'm making my jewelry on Saturdays for 3 hours, so I don't really get to claim that I'm an artist. And I say, that's bunk. Claim it. Claim it, because it'll make sense of your day job life. And then that speaks to the next issue, which is, I say you have to have a life you can live with. In other words, I can't have this crazy way of supporting myself that drains all the life out of me, that I can't stand, that I get sick to my stomach before I go to work, and then expect to have, in my free hours, this open-hearted relationship to my art.
Right.
I can't do that. So I say to people, to artists, to creative people, it might take you 6 months or a year to put some real, like I say, you got to man up and woman up on this challenge. Like I had to give up grant writing, which made me crazy. Not the writing, but all the money pressure made me insane. And I had to give that up and become a yoga teacher instead. Now, I can live with being a yoga teacher. It works with my writing and my painting and my musician life. I can do that. I also had to learn to live on less money and live on cash. But I was willing to do that because it made me feel better day in and day out. The quality of my days changed overnight.
Right. That makes sense.
So, I mean, that's the kind of the overall. One of the things that I really try to debunk for people is that thought of the Kickstarter career, that do what you love and the money will follow thought. That's the biggest lie to ever hit the cold, hard earth. Right? And we get into this thing, we forget that making art and creating something is not like, going to medical school or getting a degree in computer science. You're not going to follow this line that's paved very well in the culture and then there's a predictable outcome. When we're making art, we need unstructured we need structured time. In other words, we need a block of time, but this time needs to be unstructured enough for us to explore. Nobody's going to be telling you or me while we're writing or creating, oh, here's the outline, follow these steps, and then you'll get to letter F from letter A.
Right.
That's not going to happen. And so the world is not clamoring for our gifts before we create them. We have to create them in the quiet of our own soul, in the opening of our living room, sitting on the couch, in the middle of our art studio, or painting in our garage. Wherever we are, we have to learn to trust ourselves and give ourselves permission to explore. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like sensuality, really, right? There is no defined end. You're in it for the process. Now, when we're done, we're professionalizing our work. We want to take it out in the world and get some criticism and see if it works, see if we can learn something. But while we're creating it, we need to create these blocks of time that allow us to explore. So I make that very practical in the book with something I call a time map, an artist time map. You can do it on a napkin. You can do it on a little piece of paper. You take 5 minutes at the beginning of the week, and you look and say, okay, these are the hours I have free, right? These are my obligations, and these are the hours I have free. How much do I want to show up for? And usually we always want to say, okay, I want to write for 12 hours a week. I've got a full-time day job and a family and a this and a that, and we say, 12 hours a week. And I'd say, cut that by 2/3. Use the 2/3 rule. Because everything in your life takes 3 times longer than you think it's going to take. Everything. Right?
Yeah.
You think you can get your kitchen painted in a weekend? Not going to happen.
No.
Right? So
That's true.
everything takes 3 times longer. So what we're interested in as these artists with a new milieu of how do we balance all these things together is we want to get some regularity. So that means it's better to write 3 hours a week or do your jewelry 3 hours a week or 4 hours a week or paint or do your blog, your new, film blog 4 hours a week or 3 hours a week than it is to try to do 12 and then disappoint yourself. Mm-hmm. Just get your hands in your work on a regular basis. So what I tell people is when you're crafting your map, you go, okay, well, I can do this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, an hour a day from 4 to 5 or from 6 to 7. Or as Anne Lamott says, give up the 10 o'clock news. You're only going to hear about fires in places that you're never going to go. Right? So whatever works for you. Some people get up at 5 in the morning. But what I say is build in buffer zones. Don't spend a lot of time on ramp-up exercises. Like we all read some of the books from the 90s. You sit down, you do your morning pages, you do these ramp-up exercises. I'd say don't spend a lot of time with that. Get your hands in your art on a regular basis. Now that might mean if you're writing your family memoir that you might be reviewing and tweaking. It might be that you might be scraping up and repainting. That's part of the process. That's okay. Give yourself credit. But what we want is regularity, a spirit of showing up. And one of the reasons that's important, besides the fact that we get our hands in our work, is because those of us who have stuff to create, we get pregnant with it. It pushes on us. And when we don't do it, we get pissy. We get angry at the world. We spew this running commentary about what's wrong with our political system, what's wrong in the community. We're just slightly agitated. Mm-hmm. And so I say when we hit that kind of pissy, angry point, we can use it as a touchstone to know that the only thing that's going to calm us down is to do our work, to get our hands in our creativity. So there's another piece to this that's really a life philosophy, which is, okay, so now we've got this balancing thing where we're bringing our art into our life and we're holding more than one thing at once and we're taking slow, steady steps. Then how do we approach our professionalism so that we don't get completely bummed out when things don't work out the way we think they should? Mm-hmm. So I have had this happen numbers of times. I wrote screenplays that never went anywhere. I've, got a play that I just finished that's sitting here waiting for me to take it out into the world, right? There are things that I took out in the world that worked, things that took out in the world professionally that lifted off the ground, and things that didn't. So I say we need to stay committed to the result in our life, which is living as an artist. But we need to be unattached to each individual outcome. So in other words, we don't have any control. So that thing, do what you love and the money will follow, we don't know how the world is going to relate to our art. We have no idea. It's not set in stone. So we have to have a mechanism for loving the process, like saying, I'm proud of myself. I show up for who I say I am. I get my hands in my art on a regular basis. I live a well-supported life. I have balance in my family and relationship lives. I put time aside for art. It's not 5th or 10th or 24th on my list of important things. It's up there, 1 or 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when I do that and I bring my stuff out in the world and some things don't lift off, okay, we call it fertilizer and we move on to the next thing, because I'm still successful because I've created the life I want.
Right.
I've created the life that is centered around my identity as an artist. Now, this has taken me years to figure out. I have gone from every kind of extreme that you can imagine, Deborah, to even living on my credit card so I could buy myself time, which was the impetus for the first book. That is not a bright idea. Do not do that.
Yeah, I think that's a very popular one.
Yeah, it's a very and so this thought process this is one of the things I say about money clarity, and there's a section on money clarity in the book. We're not learning money clarity as artists so we can be good little citizens and get a pat on the head and improve our credit scores. That's not our objective. Our objective with money clarity is we want to buy ourselves time. So if we choose to live on less and work less so we can write that trekking memoir, or so that we can go to South America for 3 months and teach music in a school, that we have the opportunity to answer the call when it comes.
Right.
So that's our objective with money clarity. That's our objective with time clarity, is that we want to get our hands on our art and we want to develop some real chops. Because our happiness comes from getting into our creativity, not from doing these pendulum swings of, okay, I'll just work in a corporate setting, and then, I'll quit, and I'll work for 3 months on my art, and I'll pray that that thing I made will save me from ever having to have a job again. Mm-hmm. That cycle is deathly to the spirit. Mm-hmm. And I did it for a lot of years, so I can attest. I mean, there were days I remember standing in the middle of my kitchen in Los Angeles with a guy who was a independent movie producer and friend of mine, and crying and saying, I don't want to be on the planet if it's like this. I don't want to be here if it's like this. So I had to find another way to live with these gifts because, I'm not going to be playing tennis on Thursday nights. I've got art to do. It's not that I never can play tennis or I can never go on a vacation. That's not what I'm talking about, and I advocate that. Have something you do. But I'm going to have another thrust in my life besides just recreation. Right. And that artistry is what keeps me sane on this earth. Being part of that. I love what Cheryl Strayed says, the woman who wrote Wild. She says, we are here to build our own house. Like, that. My gifts are unreplicated on this earth. Your gifts are unreplicated on this earth. Nobody else can give them for one obvious reason. It's all on you because it's your voice. It's all on me because it's my voice. And the other way I like to look at this is I don't want to get to my 90th birthday, which most of us, barring any disaster, are going to live to be 100. I don't want to get to my 90th birthday and say, why didn't I have the courage to at least try my art? Right. Why didn't I at least put my foot and my second foot and my ankles in the stream and walk upstream a little and see how it felt? So I don't want that regret.
Exactly. I think a lot of people have that because, as you were saying, the idea in society that it's an all or nothing. Right. Either you're working your 9 to 5 and being miserable, as so many people seem to be okay with being, or you're making art and then that's all you're doing. And then, if you're not independently wealthy or if you're not making all the money to support yourself, then it becomes this thing where you're always upset and always on edge and wondering what's going to happen next and how can I make this work. Yes. And it sounds like from what you're describing, it's more of integrating this into your life as part of your life, or as the priority of your life, and arranging what you have to arrange so that you can live this life that you really want.
Right, and putting your art at the center of it. I'm not saying that, what you do in the world is more important than your love affair. I'm not saying that, or your relationship with yourself. But I'm saying it's right up there. Because, and one of the things I say about you and I are talking about our relationship to ourselves, but there's lots of people I talk to who have all this trouble in their relationships because they're unfulfilled in their life and they're angry at their spouse that their spouse expects this monetary commitment from them from their job, or they've got this low-level angst constantly going on in their relationship life. When we put our energy into our art and we give ourselves that permission, we stop being angry at our spouse. We stop being angry at our kids. We start to see that a life well lived with our hands in everything that matters is possible. And that when we stop over-expecting, we stop expecting instant results. We stop expecting that we have to be mega movie stars in order to call ourselves a successful artist. I say the definition of a working artist is someone who works on their art. Right? That's the definition of a working artist. When I'm writing 4 hours a week by the timer, I'm a working artist.
Right.
So I have a very funny anecdote. I used to go to this spiritual center in L.A. called Agape. And there was a teacher there that we called Reverend Nirvana, who I loved. And this man was beautiful, and he could dress, man. This guy could dress, right? And he was just a lovely spirit. And I got very friendly with him. And one day I came up to him and I said, I am so sick of learning by pain, I could just throw up. And he looked at me and he sort of cocked his head and he said, well, stop doing that. Learn by grace and intuition. And I just had no idea what he was talking about. I didn't know what, I looked at him quizzically and he said, listen more closely and act quickly. You're being given guidance nonstop, and you won't answer it till you smash into something and hit the wall. Stop doing that. When you get the call to create something, answer it quickly. Right? And I never saw myself as that kind of person, that I was waiting. I like to say the universe will give you a little feather on the head of an idea, and then, hey, this job is not working out so well for you for your life. And then if you don't listen, it'll be a stick. And then if you don't listen, it'll be a 2x4. And then it'll be a beam on the head. Right? Like, you're going to get nudged that way anyway. Right? So his point was, you might as well listen and learn to obey. Like, that whole thing about obedience, never liked that. Right? But what he was trying to teach me was I'm obeying my own heart.
Yes.
It's my guidance. It's not somebody outside of me. So when I start to have a relationship with my own call to create, in whatever way that is, whether it's a garden or a baby or a piece of painting art, I start to know myself better. I start to come into alignment with the gifts of my own spirit. I start to give myself permission to explore. Maybe I try something, I don't really like it. Right? I mean, the tennis thing, I thought, oh, yeah, I'm really athletic. I'd love tennis. I played tennis. I didn't care. Right? And the same thing might be true of art. I love abstract art. Somebody asked me once, I paint these large abstracts, and somebody asked me once, well, where does that come from in you? And it was a beautiful question. I couldn't answer it. I know that I love vivid color. I know that I love the abstract form. I know that my husband and I have lots of abstract art around in our flat. But can I tell you where that comes from? No. But it is wired into me, and I have come to know that it's wired into me, and so I don't fight it. I just do it when the call comes.
Exactly. And that's probably what happens with a lot of people who do get the call to express themselves in whatever way that they're defining it. And then they don't, or they put it down, or they're afraid to follow that because it's not what you're supposed to do if you're this or if you're that.
Exactly.
And so many people are fighting what is inside them to come out. And as you're saying, that comes out in negative ways because there is that thing in you that wants to be expressed and you're not expressing it.
Well, I don't know if you've ever read Carolyn Myss. It's M-Y-S-S, and she wrote that beautiful book, Anatomy of the Spirit, and a number of others. And she says in one of her books, here's where your craziness begins. You have this idea, and you go out into the world and you say to your friends, hey, I'm going to write a memoir. And your friend looks at you and says, you're going to write a memoir? And you take that into your say, oh yeah, I can't do this. I shouldn't do this. And she says, and that's where your madness begins. Right? And this other brilliant thing she says is when our heart calls us to do something and our head doesn't know how, we often send our will into addictions. We overeat, too much television, sex, shopping, debt, you name it, alcohol, drugs, right? So that thought that to be a healthy creative person where we're pregnant with the push of something that wants to come out of us, we want to have a mechanism for getting it out. When we don't, we're not well, right? Plus, it's a beautiful flow once you start doing it. Like last year, I had this play rambling around in my head for a year. It was just rambling around in my head, and then pretty soon the characters were like talking to me in my head whenever I take a walk or lay my head down. And so I realized, okay, that's a year of that. I need to sit down, carve out the time, and write the play. So, and I didn't know if it was going to work. It's not like I have a big history of playwriting. I have some history of screenwriting, but not a lot, right? So I sat down, I wrote the play. I had the best time. I had so much fun. The play turned out beautifully, and, haven't yet had a chance to market it and take it out, but I was very, very proud of myself and very, very proud of the product. So that's what we're after is, I don't know what's going to lift off the ground. I really don't. But what I do know is that I'm in this to be a professional at it. I'm in this to have my hands in my art. And for those of us who are multiply talented, I've made 2 music CDs, 2 Americana folk music CDs, and I paint paintings, and I write books, and I write travel articles. And more I kind of look at it as a target. I want to get closer and closer and closer each year to the heart of who I am and get that expression out into the world. I see that's my job. We think about what is the job of the artist. It's to invite people to pause and to notice what it is to be alive right now. Right? It's not the goal. It's not the walk towards the end of life. It's the, okay, how has this artist here, me or you or another artist, seen the world? It invites me to stop and see the vivid color field on the canvas. It invites me to stop and read an article about someone who's just lost his mother and what that felt like. It invites me to stop and see this amazing installation collage of what someone did with recycled cans. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, what we're doing is we're seeing through the lens of that person's eye. We're getting reflected back our time, our culture, our experience, a wave of beauty that's often not even intellectual. That's what I love about abstraction. It's not, it comes before the words. We're looking to be part of that beauty. I have this beautiful quote that I found in a liturgical prayer book about beauty. Let's see if I can find it here. We pray to break the bonds that keep us from the world of beauty. We pray that we may walk in a garden of purpose, in touch with the power of the world.
Wow. I think what happens a lot of times is that, or maybe all the time, is the way that people are, that we are conditioned in terms of, well, you go and you work and you come home and then you wait for the weekend or a holiday,
Right.
and you're always running, but where are you running to?
Right.
And, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be working and thinking about paying bills and taking care of their needs, but there's a point where you can also have a life within that. It's not all focused on the 9 to 5 or whatever it is you're doing, and then everything else we don't think about. It's embracing all of it and taking that time to be in the moment that anybody can do. You can enjoy art. You don't have to have millions of dollars to enjoy art or to express art.
Right.
It seems as though that is not really that's not emphasized, and it makes people miss a core of something within their being that gets filled, as you mentioned before, gets filled with a lot of addictions and things because there's something that has to be filled and they don't know what it is, but they're going to run for this and run for that. And we're encouraged in our culture in the moment, buy this, buy that, buy that, buy that, because that'll serve this need. That will fill the need that you have. This emptiness will be filled if you buy this item. Drink that, eat that, do that, and then you're on to the next moment because it never really fills you in this way because you're not really experiencing the world in its wholeness as you could be.
Right.
Not to say buying things is bad, but it's not the only thing, and it's not going to fill that hole that you have that really isn't coming from a material place.
Right. Yeah, and
you know?
that's one of the things I'm talking about in the book is we have to find balance, right? We have to find balance. And, you know, I mean, we live in the Bay Area, and I call it the Hollywood of technology, you know? Like everybody worships technology where I live, the way people worship the movie industry when I lived in L.A., right? And so it's very easy, and I have friends and friends of friends who have, you know, make really great salaries but have a $300,000 American Express bill, right? It's insanity. So that that thought of putting so much energy into the make it conversation and not having a life while you do that ruins marriages, ruins families, ruins your well-being. So it's one of the reasons why I love teaching yoga, and I teach to a lot of people who work in that realm, right, is to just come in and just be for a moment and let go of your head and let yourself be guided and bring your attention into the intelligence of your body and your spirit, so that when you walk out in the world, you have the ability from someplace inside yourself where you've sort of pulled up a chair inside your heart, you're paying attention to your being and your body, and you can distinguish when you walk out in the world the difference between what's important and what's urgent, right? Doing my art is important because it brings my well-being and my happiness face front in my life. Doing what's urgent, you know, I mean, one of the things that we all struggle with, let's say, and I say to people, don't use your computer at all when you're doing your art. Turn off your phones unless you use it for the actual craft you need it for, right? Some people use a computer to write or to, you know, compose music or whatever. But that thought that we're going to sit down for our hour and, I'll just check these quick 17 emails. And poof, there goes your time. That's urgency. So the way you define the difference between urgency and important work is the urgent stuff you won't remember 30 minutes after you did it, and you certainly won't remember a year from now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I'm sitting here talking to you, looking at a painting I did 6 years ago that's on my wall, that's completely beautiful to me, that I'm hugely proud of. I own that labor, right? I take that into my heart. That was important to me, and it's still important to me, and it resonates as important. You know, taking a time off to walk with your kid in a garden and pick poppies, you know, that's important, right? The time we take to have some private time, some intimate time with our partner, that's important. I always like to define this by when I go to people's memorial services, and my mother-in-law's of an age where a lot of family friends are passing, and so we go to these memorials, and these people who were well-loved, people talk about their career for about 5 minutes, and the other 90 is who they were in the world. They were kind, they were generous, they were a good friend, you know, they always told me the truth. I could always count on them for some guidance or a good thought. That's the stuff that we get remembered for. And the stuff that we have our hands in that's meaningful to us, our creativity, is the stuff that's important. So we have to get out of this thought process that we can Jones ourselves through a day from in the car, on the Instagram, on the, you know, on the phone, on the this, do the emails, run here, run there, and be satisfied. It's not going to happen. We have to find something. It's not that all that stuff is bad. It's that we have to balance it.
Right.
And the one thing that I always like to say about, you know, procrastination, because that's always a big creativity issue, and I always say to people, I have news for you, we're all procrastinators. We all have to overcome that one. That's not specific to any one creative person. We all have to overcome that. That's the biggest thing we will ever learn, and that's why my book spends so much time on it, is how do we map our time so that we show up for ourselves on a regular basis? And I guarantee you, when you're learning, you will dissolve into email answering at least once. You'll find yourself at the local discount store buying shoes. You know, I guarantee you it will happen. But over time, you'll start to get this work ethic where you know that when you show up and do your work, even when it's not done or it's hard or you're pulling it apart, you'll feel better about yourself. You'll feel more content in your life. You'll feel better in your relationships. You'll even feel better at your day job if you have one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the premise, really, of the whole book is answer the call. How do you live with your life as it is? That means time, money, work ethics, motivation, job, relationships. How do you balance that? How do you create a heaven on earth for yourself right now, not later, but now? With the stuff you have on your plate now, how do you begin? How do you stay in? How do you keep going through a finish line? Professionalize your work, move out into the world, and keep your spirit strong. That's what my book is all about.
Well, that sounds perfect.
Thank you, hon.
That sounds perfect. Particularly because people are always searching for that balance and that way to make sense of it all. And I'm sure a lot of people are running because they don't want to really stop and think about it. A lot of the workaholic kind of thing that happens. And when I was in IT, I certainly fell into that pit, and a lot of people I knew who were always being encouraged to work through nights and weekends and holidays and more and more and more. And, all those efforts never really made a gigantic difference. The company still went downhill.
Right. Well, and, I give an example of that in the book, too, that, you have to set boundaries. And if you have a boundaryless work environment, you can try to set boundaries. And I give some, even though that term's been very overused, it's very appropriate here. You can try and do that in your work situation. But if that situation keeps bowling you over time and time and time again, then it's time to look for a new day job. Yeah. Because the center of your life is the heart of your life. We want to start from our creativity and our relationships and work outward, not vice versa.
Right.
So that thought that you might have to, I had to do that. You have to throw an elbow. There's always a boss who at 4:55 has some disaster, right? Yeah. And it happens like 3-4 times a week, and you've got your coat on, you're on your way out the door, and you have to learn to say nicely. You have to assess, will the company die if I don't do this till 9 tomorrow? No. You know what? I will take care of that tomorrow at 9. I'll see you tomorrow. Keep walking. Don't engage in conversation. Just keep walking. You have to throw an elbow at least once. Right?
I agree. Yes. I've had that experience.
My favorite quote along this line is Helen Keller's quote that no pessimist ever discovered the secret of the stars. And we think about what the opposite of pessimism is. It's not eternal optimism. It's this sense of discovery, that we want to be able to be in our own sense of discovery about what it is to be the unreplicated, unique being that we are, and what do we have to offer from that place. And that's how I stay sane. That's where the title came from, How to Be an Artist Without Losing Your Mind, Your Shirt, or Your Creative Compass, right? The question really is, how do we stay sane in this world while we have all these obligations and we want to create something? And the object is to create the balance, learn the simple tools that are in the book that'll really help you. And, I really believe in simple tools. They're easy to apply. They're easy to understand. It's not hard. And, you just keep working them until they start to kick in the door on your resistance. But the object really is to find that place where we're creating the heaven on earth that's meaningful to us. Not to our partner, not to our parents, not to our kids, but to us, right? You have to find that balance, and that's what this book is all about.
So please tell us where everyone can find your book and also find out more about you.
Okay, so my website is An Artistry Life. So it's like a sentence, A and the word A-N, like N is in November, anartistrylife.com. And you can buy the book everywhere. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, Books A Million, Google Books has it. So it's everywhere. And your local bookseller will have it too. So it's called, one more time, How to Be an Artist Without Losing Your Mind, Your Shirt, or Your Creative Compass. And I keep all of my artistry on my website. So at anartistrylife.com, you'll see the first book as well. And there's lots of stuff to read about being an artist and being a creative person in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's fantastic because everyone can learn from what you've shared and learn from your book, particularly those entrepreneurs who are listening and really want to create something and share it and understand that you don't have to keep struggling between art and commerce, which is another topic that certainly creates a lot of conflict with people. And some women entrepreneurs I've talked to who sometimes feel that they shouldn't ask for what they're worth, but then they want to express in the world, they want to bring something out here, whether it's a product or service, but then they feel so conflicted, and then they're trying to balance that with
right.
their needs and desires. All of this just runs through so many of our experiences, whether a person thinks they're an artist or not. It's still something we all deal with, and I think, especially in the entrepreneurial world, there always seems to be these conflicts between expressing and creating, and then having the conflict within yourself, maybe of not feeling worthy or not feeling comfortable or thinking success equals this or that. It's really an interesting and very deep topic. So
yeah, and I would say too that anyone who has an entrepreneurial spirit would benefit from reading my book. I specifically addressed artistry because I think that's the arena in our culture that has so many bad stereotypes.
Yes.
But these principles will work with anybody who wants to create anything. If you're a scientist, if you're starting a small business, if you're designing children's clothes, if you're, whatever it is, you're starting a food business, you want to start a food truck, right? These principles of starting with slow, steady steps, building, living within your means, creating time while you've got another gig going on, all of those things will work in any entrepreneurial setting.
Exactly. And it certainly all ties in. So everything you're saying here, I have no doubt that listeners will certainly appreciate, and also the book will help them as well to try to strike that balance within themselves and what you want to express, because I think it's something everybody can connect with and understand. And as I said, no matter if they call themselves an artist or not, it still is expressing in the world, and that
absolutely.
What people would feel so much better within themselves if they could just get to the heart of what it is that they need to bring out. So I think, as you said, this would apply all across the board. I really believe that. So this has been fantastic. I am so glad that you were able to come back and share the details of your new book. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and I want to congratulate you on it and really wish you very well with it, because I think these are important things that need to be said and really need to be put out there for people to grasp and think about and apply to their own life. So I think this is a great book idea. I'm so glad that you did it.
Thank you so much, Deborah, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, certainly. I really enjoyed our conversation. Everyone, I know that you loved this, so please make sure you share this, share it with your friends, download it on social media, check it out on iTunes, and have your friends go there and subscribe, or Podomatic, if you want to do that as well. That's fine. And also the blog Women Entrepreneur Secrets is where you can find links as well. So it's very easy for you to find out more and share this information, and pick up the book and find out more about that, how you can apply that to your life. So once again, and Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I'm glad you could join me, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye now.